Go! Hello. Welcome to TBRI. We are going to talk about trust-based relational intervention. And what is that? It is an attachment-based, trauma-informed intervention that is designed to meet the complex needs of vulnerable children. TBRI uses empowering principles for addressing the physical needs, the connecting principles for attachment needs, and the correcting principles to disarm fear-based behaviors. While the intervention is based on years of attachment and sensory processing and neuroscience research, the heartbeat of TBRI is connection. Founder Dr. Karen Purvis says when you connect to the heart of a child, everything is possible. TBRI was designed to be used for kids from trauma or used in group homes, used in foster care, used in any place you're working with children from hard places. And it is basically because of their history, these kids have difficulties to trust the loving adults in their lives, which often results in perplexing behaviors. TBRI offers practical tools for parents, caregivers, teachers, and anyone who works with children to see the whole child in their care and help that child reach their highest potential. If you are interested in much more information than I can give you guys on TBRI, you can get information on how to have a TBRI classroom. You can get TBRI certified and be an actual practitioner. But it's like a big class out in California, I believe, or in Texas. They do these big training weeks. But there's a ton of information if you look up TBRI from I forget which campus it came from, but it comes from a Texas university where they have the entire Karen Purvis Institute that does TBRI, and they send TBRI people all over the world now. But we're going to do some kind of breakouts for TBRI in a little bit, but I am going to walk you through the basic principles. For new people, this will be something hopefully very practical for you to use. For returning people, hopefully I have gotten better at explaining this than ever before. But we want to be able to have 3 building blocks of understanding that support our camp observation tools for assessing and alleviating a situation, and then use our big 3 principles for engaging an actually dysregulated moment. So, TBRI at camp requires 3 building blocks. Number 1, consider the whole child. Our campers' bodies are physically not the same as kids who have grown up in stability or without trauma. The Body Keeps Score is a book all about realizing how our bodies hold traumatic events and can manifest pain and problems throughout our life. Our bodies know when we're safe and when we are not. Even if a teacher has their place designated as a safe space, your body may or may not agree with that statement. So we want to make sure that you have a sense of felt safety out at camp, that the campers can feel that and know at the most basic level that they feel comfortable and safe in our space. And to do that, we want to be looking at our campers' body language, the nonverbal communication, looking at everything about them head to toe to see what they are communicating to us. Because not only are the behaviors communicating, the whole child's communicating. Our second building block is brain chemicals are at play. We want to consider the whole child. We want to consider what they're explaining to us, what they're telling us, what their information they're giving us. But now we're going to have to understand the brain chemicals that they have going on in their life. So for kids from hard places, they probably have a lot of cortisol. And cortisol is a steroid hormone that has many different functions. And it can help break down protein and glucose and make them available in your body for energy. But it also helps maintain blood pressure in your immune system. Cortisol levels fluctuate during the day. And it's also known as the stress hormone. So everyone likes to talk about having high cortisol these days because of just how high stress a lot of people's lives are. It triggers the fight or flight response in people, which increases your energy levels to avoid danger. Consistent high stress levels, though, especially in kids who have experienced trauma, can damage the brain development. If you're used to being in an unsafe living in a dysfunctional space, or you live in a constant state of high alert and danger awareness, everything can become a threat. Our campers may not be able to do or respond to things normally because of their brain chemicals and the conditioning due to trauma and stress. Basically, their brain chemistry is different because of where they've lived, how they've grown up. This can go down to even into their sensory processing issues. This can go into belief systems, attachment, trust issues. And these are at play at every encounter you have with your camper. We think of core beliefs normally as being a good thing, but no matter your background, these can be good, poor, mixed, or completely negative, and they drive your world paradigm and identity. These kids are complex beings who have many needs, and God is okay with that. They are not projects to fix, and each child is unique, a complex person with a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual experience that we need to respect and be curious about the real person that they're sharing with us, and we're not prying and trying to diagnose them. We just need to recognize that they have experienced trauma, which means their brain, body, and beliefs are probably different than a kid you know that was raised in a safe and secure home. Some of their actions and tics can't be helped because of what their brain and body have gone through. But good news, everyone! Positive human interaction will lower cortisol levels. We can interact and help lower their stress and show them unconditional love. If we have a stressed out child that complains of a stomach ache, it could be from high cortisol. We could try snacks and stuff to help alleviate that stress and anxiety. And some kids that are on high alert might be cognitively delayed, as high cortisol does stunt their development. We try to have high protein options as snacks and low sugar options out at camp because this will help set their body up for success. They've done a lot of research to talk about high protein snacks doing better for kids regulating and helping with these kids that have this different brain chemistry. The high protein snacks is just being really supportive and caring to alleviate the stress they're under. Granted, we can only do this for 5 days for them, but by being proactive and following these rules, we're going to really help their brain in the most amazing way possible for even just 5 days. By being fun, we're bringing childhood to the forefront and allowing them to play, which is the true work of childhood. Block 3, our third building block out at camp, is the nurture and structure element. And so one of the issues that can come up for volunteers a lot at camp is that we are letting kids get away with bad behaviors. They're not getting punishments. They're not getting consequences. They're not getting discipline. And a lot of that is words that are used by parents that have kids in a safe environment where they have disciplined their kids for better behaviors. They have given consequences in order to train their kids in righteousness. But we're not dealing with kids that have had proper disciplines and proper consequences. So we at camp will not have any punishments of any kind for bad behaviors. And we are not going to be wildly permissive of wrong or naughty or destructive behaviors, but we will have some natural consequences. And we're not going to tolerate unsafe behaviors that threaten people or property. But we are not going to approach behaviors in maybe the way you would with your own kids or ways you have seen done with family and nieces and nephews and kids that have a safe, loving environment. Instead, because of their brains and because of their bodies and their experiences, we have to have a different setup, and we will do that with the idea of structure and nurture. And you are going to always need structure for boundaries and rules and safety. And then you're going to have to use that in order to teach them just to learn to function, to learn to get along, to learn to cooperate and develop their brain where it is lacking due to the neglect or lack of opportunities to learn these skills. And then we equally need to apply nurture to these kids because they're at a massive deficit for attachment and connection that comes with proper nurturing. So you can't approach these kids the same way you would. Because with my nieces and nephews, I'd probably just say, knock it off. You know better. Let's move on. Come on. Let's get to work. Let's do it together. Let's just get this job done. But with these kids, I'm probably going to take a lot longer to process it with them because they don't have those skills. When responding to a challenging behavior, adults need to gauge when to lead with structure and when to lead with nurture. And I like to think about this being your left foot and your right foot, whichever one makes sense for you. But right foot to me is structure and left foot is nurture. But these are two elements that have to go together, because we don't really stand on one foot for very long. And we might for a little bit, but we're going to follow up with the other foot as soon as we can in order to have solid footing. So if I lead with structure to work with this kid, something's probably unsafe, and we need to make sure we bring back safety, we bring back at least a appropriate space for this scenario, this situation, what's going on. We need to make sure that things are going to be okay. And then I'm going to follow up with nurture. And I'm probably going to be saying, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on? Can you tell me something? Because once we have safety, then we can connect. If it's a situation where it's just big emotions, and I'm probably going to start with nurture and be like, when you're ready, you can tell me what you're feeling. But we don't want to not have both if it was a serious moment. Sometimes we're going to have to maybe just talk a little bit, not necessarily have a whole like structure of safety thing, but maybe it's more like, what can we try next time? If you're feeling that big of an emotion, maybe we can think of a way to get ahead of it before it becomes that big. But at this point also, we can always switch. If we choose the wrong one, if you chose nurture and they're freaking out at you even more, we can try structure. And then at the moment when I'm trying to decide which one to start with, I'm usually praying. So always be asking the Holy Spirit just for that wisdom of, what does this kid need and how do I follow it up right? So those are our 3 building blocks for TBRI. We have considering the whole child, top to bottom, and their physical being. And then we want to consider the brain chemistry, how their brain is different, how it might be processing, how it might be delayed. And then we want to consider the balance of structure and nurture, because we are then addressing the physical needs and nurturing the brain for that development that might be missed. So considering these options, considering these deals when we are looking at our kid. Now we're going to look for some observation tools. So we have 3 observation tools for kind of the setup out at camp. And this is going to be really well done, and probably why RFK and TBRI have kind of partnered for this kind of training, is that they have the whole setup for TBRI being your environment, your people, and your message. And camp is also set up to be the environment of camp, trustworthy counselors and staff, and the message of hope for these kids. So they go right in line together. And we just have to then observe, looking at this whole child in this setting of environment, people, and message, what is triggering the kid. So if we can look at it and figure out what in our setup is wrong or irksome to the child, like then we can kind of figure out how to be proactive. So the things we're going to look at are the environment, the sensory needs, and the emotional spaces. So the environment, our camp setup. Let's look at the activities. Let's look at the structure. Let's look at the interactions. Did something happen? Is it the transition out of swimming every day that's really hard? Are they just tired? And at this point, I'll just make that note of looking at kids' behaviors. When looking at the whole child, you always want to be looking at hydration and hangry. Are they hydrated? Are they hangry? Because then we can always alleviate a ton of problems right away if we get them water, if we can get them a snack. If you can get them moving in that direction, we probably have figured out half of our problem. It is the best, fastest option if you can move your kids to a snack, a water, or a rest in these moments. But if they're too upset, they might refuse everything, and it doesn't matter. But it's still good to know that if we can figure out what that is for them, we can head it off. We can always have snacks in our fanny packs. We can always have water delivered to you. We can help figure out means of making these things easier if we know what sets them off. So we always want to be looking at the environment. How do we make this easier? How do we get ahead of the problem? Our second observation tool is the sensory piece, and we want to be meeting sensory needs as much as possible at a camp. And you will know if you have kids that are sensory enjoying kids, they just like sensory toys, they like the Orbeez, they like fidgets. And then if you have kids that are actually sensory avoidant, they hate it, they don't want anything touching them, they hate textures, they hate food textures that are weird. Or if they are actually sensory seeking and almost have this like need for a sensory diet. Some people are just different, and that's fine. Some kids are just going to have this extreme need for touch-oriented things that don't necessarily involve being touched by another human being. So we have lots of fidget spinners, we have Play-Doh, we have the ore beads, water beads, the different stress balls, the different things that they can do in the quiet cabin, pillows that have like the sequins on them, fuzzy stuffed animals, blankets, pillows. We have chewing gum, we have different sensory bottle things they can do that are more visual. The quiet cabin has all that stuff for de-stressing and stuff, if that is something that speaks to their sensory needs. For some, it might be overly, if they're overly sensitive, it might just be too much to even go in there with all of that kind of touchy stuff. But we'll have kids maybe out at camp that hate the touch of like a wet swimsuit will drive them nuts, or the tag, or they want their bed just made just right or something. So some of these things can be sensory. You might have kids out there that are very auditory stimulated, and so they will make a ton of noises, kind of weird, or they like screaming and yelling. As long as it's outside, let them. When we're inside the cafeteria and chapel and stuff, we'll try to find ways of distracting them that's not the right time to make noises. But you might have other kids that are very, very annoyed with their noises, so let us know. We can work on that. You might have kids that really like vestibular input, which would be the physical like impact, the sensory of feeling impact on your body. So like when kids really like to jump, kids really like to like, maybe not super safe all the time, but not really bad, like where they just kind of like to bump and crash. So they might like kind of bump into the wall on purpose, or they might bump into you when you're walking. They might really come in for like hard hugs, where they really want to hug, but they also want to feel a hit. It's not like usually a dangerous thing. They just really kind of like bump and crashing. So if you have a kid like that, let us know. They can find benefit from the workout cabins where, let's jump and feel the impact of jumping. Let's run and think about our feet being like monster feet where they're just really heavy hitting the ground. Find ways of being creative with it and finding that physical sensory impact. And you can think about sensory being like that itch on your back you just can't reach, and then you finally scratch it and it feels so good. Other people are going to find it to be like nails on a chalkboard. They hate it. They can't stand it. Like the number of grandparents I've tried to explain slime to, they just don't get it. They can't understand why that's appealing. Those are people without sensory issues. But those who need it really, really, really love it. And when you find that kid, the right sensory fit, and you can almost tell that it's like they're like shoving it in, not literally, but like it's almost like they're eating it, and they're just eating it up, and they're just it's feeding them somehow, and you finally see that click for them, and it's really cool. It's actually really cool once you see how much that impacts a kid. So that was our second sensory issues, was our second tool. And now we're going to look at the mental emotional for our third observational tool. Did they get triggered mentally, emotionally? Did something happen and they are afraid? Are they remembering something? Did they get mad because you gave them a direction and maybe it triggered something that they've heard before? It's really hard to tell. We probably won't know. But read the signs of their emotions on their face, and mostly if you can just ask, what are you feeling? What do you need? It is a specific healthy brain skill to be able to name an emotion. So if we can help them by asking, teaching them to identify it. I think your face looks anxious. Is there something I can do to help you? What are you feeling? I've heard it's not always great to name the emotion. Now, used to be before, help the kid figure it out. But like now I'm hearing like you shouldn't name it for them, but just kind of try to lead them to it. But I haven't had enough practice with that one lately to see how well that works of helping them discover it without naming. But by all means, just be real and ask versus guessing if we're not sure. So I mentioned it when we were talking about shame. The biggest trigger I've seen is fear. And so did something make them feel scared? Did something make them feel afraid? Did something feel threatening in that moment? So if we can figure out what the trigger was, great. But at that moment, if the amygdala is going off, they're probably not going to have a whole lot to give. They're not going to be able to say a lot. They just think they're in trouble for something, or they think they have they don't belong here anymore, that they're out, like they don't belong. So now they're going to just fight and be in self-protection mode. So in those moments, how can we give them our peace? How can we help calm those emotional stresses or the anxiety, or just maybe getting nervous about something like the end of camp, or they don't like going to the shower time or something? How can we help teach them joy by an example, and just by taking in the moments and the accomplishments out at camp? How can we be an example of what Jesus does in a person's life? Being sensitive to their actual needs, and don't press anything on them, of course, but this is all very, very important for helping build and help their brain development and the brain chemistry, even being able to rewire for good thoughts and hope. So our 3 tools were to look at the environmental triggers, any sensory needs, and any emotional responses or situations that they're responding to camp with. So when we're thinking about these things, it's kind of how are they experiencing or responding to camp. We want to be observing and making sure we're picking up on how they're having their camp experience. All right, so now TBRI at camp has the big 3 principles. And this is the moment where things are getting out of sync. And you maybe are starting to feel uncertain because your kid's being a little off. Like, you can tell it's a heightened moment. You can tell they're about to go, nuclear. So your 3 guiding principles are going to be connect, empower, correct. We want to connect relationally to meet the attachment needs of like bringing a baby in for a cuddle when they're all screaming and they're like ready to just, they need a snack, they need a nap. But like right now, we're just going to hold that baby and calm them first. That's the attachment needs. And we're going to do that even though we're working with 8-year-olds. I've heard some TBRI practitioners train on the fact that even though we're dealing with 8-year-olds, we're kind of filling in the gaps maybe that they had at that moment. So if no one actually gave them enough of that kind of infant calming and reassurance kind of thing, we can do that in an extension to these 8-year-olds or these 10-year-olds that are now looking at us in these big moments. So we want to give our calm and meet their attachment needs. And then we want to empower the child with choice to meet their physical needs. And lastly, we correct a behavior or action to disarm fear-based behaviors. So first thing we're going to do when your kid's getting dysregulated is we want to try and connect with the kid. You want to be able to meet attachment needs and sense of belonging and connection being kind of maintained even though they're trying to flip their lid. So create a sense of teaming together. We are calm and connected, and we're going to establish care and belonging first. For our campers, we're demonstrating to them how Jesus gives himself completely to us and for us. We want to know that we're here to keep you safe. We want them to know that we're here to keep them safe and that they're secure. We want them to know that we're here when you speak and we're listening, just like Jesus does for us. Number 2, you're going to empower the child with choice. And basically, this is the RFK principle of keep moving forward. So how do we get the kid moving in the right direction? How do we keep them moving? But also, we want the action to meet their needs. So getting them to tell you what they need, or figuring out what we need next to regulate, or just to move through this moment sometimes. Maybe it's not so much that it's a big dysregulation, but maybe it's just a transition, and we need you to make a choice to move through to the next thing. Mentor the brain to know what it needs and how to ask for it. Let them choose the next step, and then show them you don't have to fight me for that. Like, we can be safe. You don't have to fight to be safe. You have a voice, and I'm listening. So once we have that connection, we have made a choice, we're moving in a direction. Now, once calm and regulated, we discuss corrections gently. We correct in a way to mentor the brain development that they need, and we do this when the amygdala is in a calm state, so they're not learning that they have to fear punishment, but they just have to work through either the corrections or learning a better way to do it next time. And they might have correct consequences, like we might have to fix something. We might have to go talk to your counselor and rebuild the relationship. We might need to talk to our cabin mates and rebuild safety in the cabin so that they're not uncomfortable being around us. But We might have to clean up a mess, if you threw toys everywhere or something. But we don't have punishments out at camp, and they can rest in safety and security as we process this correction together as a team with support. So, Mr. Waternoose from Monsters Inc. says it all when he says it's all about how you enter the room. You have to be aware of your energy in every situation. So especially in these heightened moments, how are you engaging with this kid? If it's a really big, scary moment, this kid's using all their power words and all their big actions in order to just cause a scene, how are you engaging? Be aware if you come in big, be aware if you come in, I don't know what to do. Be aware if you come in going, I don't know how to help you, will you tell me? Like, how you enter, how you engage matters. And sometimes it's all about adjusting your approach because of your camper. Like, so depending on their energy, are we matching it? Are we counteracting it? How do we help? And this might be just you saying even something unexpected to change their demeanor. But can you be that wild and that goofy that it just flips the script because they're no longer going to go off because they have to stop and think about why you just said we could jump in the lake. It's 4 p.m. We can't jump in the lake. We gotta go shower. Why would you say we could? How weird can you be in the moment to alleviate an issue from ever becoming an issue? As long as it's safe and as long as it's within line with all of our rules, you have permission to be weird to avoid a meltdown. Give the campers you as the safe, calm, comforting, and capable person of helping them through anything. Let them know that you are a sure thing, and as often as possible, be the person that says yes most of the time. This goes back to the animal wheel. If you haven't watched that video, make sure you can watch that one. The animal wheel, what are they being and how do I engage and interact with the animal they're at right now? How do I disarm fear and the critics that are talking? So now in these moments when maybe when Danielle's talking about managing behavior, she says it takes that 20 to 30 minute time for a kid to go from dysregulated back to regulated. This is kind of those official TBRI qualities of engagement for those moments where you're processing dysregulation. So the official TBRI qualities of engagement are attunement, eyes, tone, on their level, work it through, positive touch. We'll work it through here together. So attunement is going to be that focusing on the kid 100%. You start praying, you start being observant, you start trying to figure out what triggered them. You're reading all of the body language. And at this point, yes, it's okay if you're going also, what the heck, God, I don't know what to say next. I don't know what to do next. I'm in that spot a lot. But this is the moment where you are looking at the kid and you are really taking in all the information they're giving you. And you want to see the true person behind the behavior. And then you're going to have kind eyes. Number 2 is our kind eyes. And like, you can have the like mean mama look, which I probably get too often. But you can also have the like just really understanding eyes, the gentle eyes that are saying nonverbal communication of, you can trust me. And then you want to have the tone, and you can have the tone. And I know I can get a real serious tone when I come in bad cop. But like in these moments where we want to have the engagement starting with connection, you got to have that real calm tone. You got to have that real gentle voice that's going to soothe them back into peace, and then also be able to help their brain actually hear you and activate for a relational space. Then number 4 is going to be on their level. So you want to physically put yourself in the space with them. And I used to think of this as like get on their level, so crouch down. But that's going to probably depend on your kid, either the height of your kid, the posture of your kid. But how can you put yourself into the moment with them and partner with them? Come alongside them. Maybe get below their eye level. Maybe let them have height to be empowered. Maybe you're sitting side by side so they don't have to look at you. Maybe you sit right in front of them and hold their hands while you're both sitting crisscross. Like, we don't need to posture ourselves for any kind of power struggle. We will go low and serve their needs, but what does partnering in this rough moment look like? And knowing your camper, I'm going to trust you guys to decide that. And then we're going to work it through. And so you're going to figure it out together. You're going to be a team and let that kid know, I'm here to do this with you. You might not be their favorite person right away, but like if you can actually process this whole thing with them, by the end of it, they do trust you. They do really, really, really want to help you. I probably have told this story before, but there was one time I had a little girl who refused to get out of a swimming pool at my job then, and she was just refusing. I was like, well, if you don't, I'm gonna have to talk to your mom, and like you're gonna lose swimming privileges. Like, this is not acceptable. You need to get out of the pool now. The rest of the group is gone. We're leaving. It's done. No. And she was just like, just kind of swimming out there, ignoring me. And finally, like, I emailed her mother and I put my stuff down, put my phone down, and I climbed into the pool fully clothed, went and got her, and she was just looking at me like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I got in the pool fully clothed. Thank you very much, sweetheart. This is going to be a really uncomfortable walk back to the school. But I got her out of the pool. I'm holding her hand, and she didn't even really fight. She didn't struggle. She was just so shocked that I got in the pool. But I pulled her out, got her. I'm like, climb up the ladder, climb up, let's go. Got her up. I'm like, where's your stuff? She's crying, refusing to go grab her shoes. I'm like, well, then we'll leave your shoes behind. If we don't go get them now, we'll just have to forget them. And so I started walking, and she's like, no, my shoes are over there. We went and got her shoes. She's crying. We're walking out. We're both dripping wet. Walking out of the pool area, get her outside with the rest of the group. And one of the other kids is like, what's going on? What happened, Miss Shea? Why are you wet? And I'm like, I'm wet. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, I'm wet. And this little girl looked at them and she's like, it's my fault. It's all my fault. She got wet because of me. And burst into tears. And it was this whole long, tearful walk back then. But she worked herself to the point. Like, she kind of realized her actions. She realized the moment. And we did it together from the moment she refused to the moment she got to the conclusion, and those emotions. And then I was like, okay, and so now what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to talk to your parents. And what do you think the consequence is going to be? Yeah, you're probably not going to swim next week. So we worked it through, all these things. And that little girl was my best friend also the rest of the summer, because we had this whole long process. We had these big conversations around it. We had the consequences, and she never once fought about the consequences after that. She accepted them, that she made a choice and she earned that consequence. So you'd be surprised how much working it through with them will build that bond, is what I'm trying to get at. You will have this trust with that kid. They will have probably never experienced someone doing that for them. And then you walk in and you show them how to do conflict. You show them how to have that with calm, with peace. You're showing them how to do the stressful moments and partner in it, so they're not feeling like they just them against the world. And then lastly, you want to have that positive touch. So at the proper moment, a reassuring hand or a hug, just to reestablish this connection, to reestablish that attachment. You screamed at me, but I still love you. Like, you called me names, but like, I'm not going anywhere. We are here for you. And so can we hold hands to clean up our mess? Can we walk together to get a snack now that we're calm? Anything you can do to just kind of reestablish that safety and friendship. And there's just a lot of healing that goes into these kids when we can positively do physical touch for them in the most safest way, to just kind of bring back the importance of how much we all need good human touch. For a lot of our little guys, this is just taking them back to that sense of attachment to infancy. When you're screaming, I'm going to pick you up and hold you. I'm going to cuddle you. I'm going to bring you back to calm. We're going to feed you. We're going to change you. We're going to give you a nap, and you're going to be okay. This is us helping with that. Even when they're 9, 10 years old, we can bring these elements of attachment and nurture back for them. Again, our 6 qualities, hard to remember because they're not very good as a numeric device of any kind. But attunement, eyes, tone on their level, work it through, positive touch. take that into a whole, and basically TBRI is telling you exactly what to do with your whole body in a heightened moment. And this is everything you need to do, everything you need to wholeheartedly engage in a really hard moment when you have to basically take that kid from dysregulated back to a calm and regulated state. And then in line with RFK's value, keep moving forward. TBRI is not going to fix every deep, hard issue we have with our kids, and it's not going to solve problems perfectly. It will get the kid moving in the right direction. It will calm the kid and they can get to the next activity. It will move through a moment that maybe we're not qualified to handle for these guys and get them back to making positive moments. TBRI will help you get through the moment and back to playing, back to having fun, back to making memories. That's the whole point. It does take a lot of time, and it does mean slowing down to process it all with a child who may not be able to do these things quickly. And these are the stressful but meaningful moments. It honestly works, and it keeps them moving forward. So, last thing you're going to do is there is a handout attached to your email that has a scenario breakout idea. So one page has scenarios and the other page has kind of kid diagnoses that we'll see on camper applications. So a lot of times we don't get a lot of detail on what those are. So it'll just say has autism on the autism spectrum, or ADHD, or PTSD. And knowing that about this kid, I want you to work them through basically these building blocks, observation tools, and then the big one would be those principles of working through a situation. So connect, empower, and correct. So if you are looking at a kid with ADHD and they're refusing to set a frog free because they want to keep it in a bucket for the whole week of camp, how are you going to first connect? Then what choices are we going to give that kid to empower them to do the right thing and move forward? And then maybe how would we correct if a correction is needed in that scenario, to work through those things for these kids, and maybe which of those 6 elements of working with the kid are really going to be important, maybe depending on which kid you picked for. So work through some of those scenarios, work through some of those kids, and just kind of remember we want to be processing that connection, empowering, and correction for this, specifically when we have to do those really big hard things for our kiddos. But TBRI has been really helpful out at camp. I encourage you to use it. You can use it on technically anybody in your world. If you work in customer service, I dare you to try TBRIing people, but do it very, very, very stealthy. Don't let anyone know what you're doing, but you just have really good skills for connecting, empowering, and correcting.